My lords, pray be seated. My lords, today we are assembled for the purpose of resuming, after these many years, the great collaborative effort between the peers of the realm and the crown, by which the Hanoverian community is principally governed. My lords, this day I take my seat upon the sovereign's throne to declare in your sight and in your hearing that the Hanoverian Parliament is restored. When I opened Hanover's first Parliament in the year 2002, I do not know that I would have been very confident that the Hanoverian experience would endure, as it has endured, into the third decade of the 21st century. We were young men back then, although I myself was rather less young than most of my subjects. Hanover, in those days, was a robustly active little kingdom bursting with initiative, innovation, and enterprise. Over the years, the Hanoverian experience would change and develop, often in rather eccentric ways, until that experience at last began to mature into a steady reflection of the best of Hanover's values during the time of the Glennish kingdoms of Hanover and Skånland. In the days of the Glennish era, Hanover would relinquish her former attachment to the micronationalistic habits which had driven her in times past, preferring instead a focus upon Anglophile culture and, very particularly, the authentic recreation of Westminster-inspired government. The Glennish period of the Hanoverian community represented to all of us a time of maturation in which the quality of the experience was to be refined and enhanced. When the Glennish kingdoms dissolved in March of 2014, it was the Kingdom of Skåne, rather than the Kingdom of Hanover, which continued Glennon's steadiness of purpose, maintaining the commitment to authenticity and cultural cohesion which the Glennish order had established. Hanover, on the other hand, upon becoming independent once more, would experience a period of challenged authority, and her community and government would diminish and later disappear altogether as a result of the upheaval and mismanagement. This past summer, however, I decided, as you know, to intervene, pressing a claim to this kingdom of my foundation for the purpose of restoring and reviving her. I determined that this enduring little kingdom should not be permitted to fall into extinction through neglect and abandonment. And so, my lords, we find ourselves here today, in this Parliament of the Kingdom of Great Hanover. Next year, the Hanoverian community will celebrate the 20th anniversary of her foundation. 20 years, to me, seems unimaginable. Hanover, my lords, has seen thus far 3 papacies, 4 American presidencies, 5 British prime ministers, the whole of the conflict in Afghanistan, and the waxing and waning of a global pandemic. Few miniature monarchies have been witness to such a span of history, and so you see, my lords, why it was so necessary to rescue this little kingdom from oblivion. Permit me to add, my lords, that I have done so with the clearest of consciences, that I neither regret nor repent of my course of action, and that our cause in accomplishing this rescue is indeed both just and lawful. This Parliament, my lords, will differ from that first Parliament which I opened 19 years ago, insofar as it is a Parliament limited to royalty and the aristocracy. That, however, my lords, is simply a reflection of present-day realities. For many years now, the Kingdom of Hanover has stood without a population or a government, reduced to little more than an abandoned social media presence. While that is most unfortunate, it would be a mistake to gloss over that reality and to proceed as though Parliament had ahead of it the task of governing a thriving population. That clearly is not our task, and we would look a bit silly if we were to behave as if it were. Should we together resolve to look upon this kingdom as something of an artistic project rather than as a government or community building project, we will have a clearer understanding of the task in hand, which is essentially to curate the Hanoverian experience and legacy. We are, my lords, a preservation committee of sorts, tasked with carefully restoring an art exhibit and making it museum-worthy once again. Hanover is a work in progress. The last brushstroke has not yet been applied, nor her final chapter written by any means. We are here to continue that work. This Parliament, then, my lords, is to be a collaboration between artists, if you like, for the enjoyable purpose of continuing a work which began long ago. You will find me, therefore, writing and posting away, as I do, on our social media pages, presenting those short essays and treatises which baffle some of you and cause some of you to scratch your heads, and those questions. Who's asking all of those questions anyhow? All of these things will be less baffling, perhaps, to those of you who by now know better than to look at Great Hanover obtusely through the lens of micronationalisticalism, remembering that this kingdom is not a micronation. Great Hanover, my lords, is art, and it is art for art's sake. The more readily we are prepared to engage Hanover through that paradigm, the more we will find ourselves at liberty to pick up our own brushes and to meaningfully contribute in our own ways. Our task, then, is a very different task from those entrusted to previous Hanoverian parliaments, to be sure, but it need hardly be a less satisfying task. And at the end of the day, it is not as if there will be no community at all. We will have each other, of course, and an intimate gathering of friends and fellow artists is no less valid than a large congress of acquaintances. The parliaments of Great Hanover will be more intimate than other parliaments are. We need not, therefore, burden ourselves with the complex rules of order enforced by a chairperson. Instead, my lords, we will simply talk things through and resolve matters collegially, like gentlemen chatting at a country club. The scenario need be no more taxing than that. And yet, our little parliament will not be utterly bereft of formality, pomp, and pageantry. Bills will be presented, votes will be called, the royal assent will be granted, sessions will be prorogued, and, as is happening right now, each session will be opened in state by the sovereign seated upon the throne. This Parliament, my lords, is intended to be a true and meaningful conversation between the Crown and the peers of the realm. While such a pattern of Parliament is indeed a medieval pattern, my lords, we all know and understand that our values as a community are anything but medieval. We do situate this, our Kingdom of Great Hanover, very squarely within the modern liberal and rules-based international order. Although Great Hanover's monarchy will be an agile one, it will never be a rash, whimsical, or tyrannical monarchy. Holding on very dearly to enlightened principles and wholesome liberal values and pieties, the Hanoverian crown will always purpose to steer the ship of state in such wise that she finds herself always on the right side of history. While Hanover's aesthetics and traditions may indeed find themselves marinated in the elegant sepia of antiquity, Hanover's intelligent mind must be modern, broad, and forward-thinking. It is my hope that we will all together utilize this first session of the Parliament of Great Hanover as a laboratory for the development of the way future parliaments will conduct themselves. I do not suspect that this session will see frenetic activity by any means. What I do hope, however, is that we may together accomplish a few good things in terms of setting the foundation of a new day for this kingdom. My lords, to that end, various measures will be laid before you. On this occasion, my lords, I would like to take a moment to offer greetings to all those visitors who may be watching us from the galleries, as it were. Please know that we are delighted that you have taken an interest in our historic little kingdom, and that we are very pleased to have you with us. Welcome. I would in particular wish to salute my dear friends, my former compatriots from West Arctica, who may be viewing these proceedings today. My year among you was a truly unforgettable year, and I will always count it among the highest honors to have served the people of West Arctica on the venerable bench of the High Court. To His Royal Highness the Grand Duke and the royal family, to the Prime Minister, to Her Honor the Chief Justice, and to their honors the Associate Justices of the GDC, I offer a most especial word of greeting. I would also like to greet upon this occasion, my lords, in a very special way, my most dear brother, seated upon the throne across the border, so to speak, His Majesty, the King of the Scottish. I greet you, dearest brother Scone, with warmth and sincere affection, assuring you and your people that the days of acrimony between Hanover's crown and your own are at an end. It is my very real hope that the Hanoverian and Scottish crowns, linked as they are through heritage and history, will maintain between them a bond of unity and friendship forever. My lords, it so happened, as you know, that I resumed my active reign over the Kingdom of Hanover on the first day of Oktoberfest. You are also aware, of course, that we together determined in council to extend the time of the celebration of Oktoberfest to include the fullness of the month of October until the 30th. Having at last arrived at that day, it is my somewhat melancholy duty to declare Oktoberfest 2021 closed. Ein Prosit der Gemütlichkeit. As, however, the end of one season signals the beginning of another, so too does the conclusion of Oktoberfest mark the commencement of a new season of collaborative legislation within the Hanoverian Imperium. It is therefore, my lords, my most satisfactory task to declare open once more the venerable Hanoverian Parliament. May we together, my lords, in the pure light of Providence, deliberate wisely, intelligently, artistically, and charitably, to the benefit of all.